If you guys like the content, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. We're growing the channel. We got plenty of more content to come. So if you guys want to stay tuned, hit that subscribe button. Welcome back to Custom Auto Connection. So today we got a van in our driveway. It has a check engine light. He says all the lights on the dash lights up and has a hard time starting. So we're going to go ahead and run the codes, see whatever codes it has, try to get that figured out for him. But before we get to that, we got to get the Cadillac. I'm actually sitting on the Cadillac right now. We had it up on jack stands up in the front because we were test fitting some wheels. But we actually got to get that out the way. So I'll go ahead and jack it up. You know, we'll go ahead and do a little sound clip of the exhaust for you guys, and then we'll go ahead and just get it out the way. So yeah, I'll go ahead and cut the camera back on once we're ready to get the codes read and see what's going on with this van. Alright, now that we got it moved up into the driveway, we'll go ahead and scan it for codes. So we'll go ahead and hop in and see what we're working with. Alright, so it kind of looks like the for the scan reader, it's kind of broken. So we'll see what we can do to get it in there without breaking it anymore, or what we got to do. Alright, we're plugged in. So I went ahead and turned on the car. We're having a problem connecting our scanner to the vehicle. The PCM is just not picking it up. The actual wiring harness that my diagnostic scanner connects to is damaged. I'm not sure if any of the wires are actually damaged or if it's just cracked. But I'm going to let it run for a little bit. It kind of feels... It doesn't feel too good. It feels kind of rough. So we'll kind of see where we go on this, see how far we get. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the scanner and try to reconnect it. But, I mean, I'm not expecting much until I get that scanner harness figured out. If I can't get it figured out, you know, that's not the end of the world. We'll go ahead and still figure out what's going on with this car. I think it's electrical, but, you know, we got to kind of figure out what's going on though. So yeah, I'll cut the camera back on once I get this side of it figured out, and we'll see how it goes. Alright, so we're gonna go ahead and mess with this connector, see what we can do. You could tell somebody was in here before. See if we're missing anything. It's pretty simple. It's a pretty simple harness. I see some black tape right here. That might just be to hold it. I'm gonna go ahead and see though to make sure, because we don't know who's touched this car or what's the deal here. You know, something happened. I don't look like a... Yeah, I went ahead and moved it up. The wires look good. Look to be in good shape. So I'll just disconnect the scanner. As you guys can see, it's cracked down here. But that shouldn't make a difference really though, because all my prongs are going to be over on this side. I'm going to make sure they're all in there pretty good. That black one that I just touched was actually it actually felt like it pushed in a little bit more, so maybe that's enough to figure out what we got going on. So the actual car is on. It should still respond, but you know, we'll kind of see what's going on. So we'll go ahead and let it load. It's kind of loading pretty slow, so Oh, we got it to connect. So it was that black wire, more than likely, that's sticking out a little bit. So let's see what codes we got. We got camshaft position sensor, air system. Okay. All right. So yeah, at least we got it to scan, and both codes were camshaft position sensor related. So we'll stick to that. P0344, P0340. So yeah, we'll stick to that, and we'll see how far we get. Alright, so it's the next day. A little more daylight. It's not as cold. It's still pretty cold. It's not as cold. We're going to go ahead and pop the hood. We're going to locate the camshaft position sensor. See what we got and what we're working with. So one of the things you're going to want to look at when you're looking at these things is you want to check out the wiring harness leading to them. And you're going to want to make sure it's not burned or anything like that. It really didn't. Okay, so this is like the older style engine. I really didn't notice it was this style, so this might be a little easier than the style that I thought it was. I'm gonna flip the camera that way you guys can see. Alright, so this one's the 3.3 V6 liter. I think the camshaft position sensor, if I'm not mistaken, on these ones is somewhere over on this side. So I'm gonna go ahead and look at it, track it down, and then I'll prop you guys up to a good angle. But I'm pretty sure it's on this side. If I'm wrong, I'll go ahead and cut the camera back on and I'll show you guys where it's at. Alright guys, so we went ahead and got the air box out the way. The little tube that leads to the valve cover, the little hose that leads to the air box, we disconnected that. There's a little wire, a little sensor that we went ahead and disconnected. You got to make sure you take down that safety clip, put pressure on the actual clip, it'll clip right off. And then it's a matter of just taking off the little hose clamp on this side, and then one to the actual box. Once you do that, it just all comes apart. The actual sensor is going to be right down here. I'm going to go ahead and grab my screwdriver, that way I can show you guys because it's kind of hard to see. And let's see if I could actually even focus this in a little better for you guys. Okay, that's probably as focused as it's going to get. You can kind of see this right here is an actual wiring harness. This leads to the connector. What I went ahead and did was I already loosened up this 10mm nut or fastener. This leads to the AC condenser or the AC compressor line. So you just take that off. You're gonna have to loosen it. I already loosened mine, and what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna flip it up, something like that. That may be enough. What you could actually do too, if that's not enough, is you could wiggle it and you can move it either way that you need it. So now that we got that moved, I'm gonna disconnect the connector, and then we'll go ahead and see if we can kind of examine it, make sure there's no obvious shorts in the wires, make sure nothing's melted, and then if everything seems to be good, we'll go ahead and pull out that sensor, and then we'll see how far we get there. So I'll cut the camera back on here in a minute. Okay, so now that we went ahead and got that out of the way, you can go ahead and trace this line back, and it's actually like I said, to the compressor, the AC compressor. But what I think we'll have enough room by getting this 13mm out of the way. I think I could slide this down over this way a little bit. That way I could really get in there to disconnect the sensor. So I just wanted to be detailed on like this certain part of things, because I noticed all the other videos out there on this replacement didn't show how they get back there. So I'm going to show you guys how to get back there without breaking anything, and so you could expect it real good. So we'll go ahead and get this 13. Got a 13 right here. We'll get it knocked out. I'm just going to use this wrench, and I'll cut the camera back on once we're ready to get to it. So I took out the bracket. The bracket went over like this. I had to loosen this one up a little bit. Sorry for being so shaky. I got to get like a stabilizer or something. But that was enough to lift it off, move that over. It looks like we have another 13 right here. This one's pretty crusty. But we'll go ahead and knock this one loose. This looks like it's the actual stud. So once we get this off, we should have plenty of room. I'll show you. I'll cut the camera back on once we get this out the way, and I could show you guys how much room we got out of it. Or, you know, I'm almost there anyway, so I'll actually just keep rolling. Keep rolling. I got a little tray of what the tools I'm using right over here. So yeah, so now that's where the bracket was. You see all that playroom we have, we could move with. We could actually, right here, it stops it, but you could actually lift up. And we got all this room to play with now. So maybe I can show you guys in here a little better. Let me see if I can get a light on this thing. Okay, so now that we got the light, you'd see the sensor right there. It's a real tough spot, but this line right here, where the line's shining right on top of, is like directly in the way. So it's right down there. You can't get your hands in there unless you do this. At least I don't think. Let's go ahead and try to get it out the way though. So yeah, I'm gonna actually try to prop it out the way. Maybe I'll zip tie it to the side or something in the meantime. There's another line right here that I could utilize right here to kind of put tension. You don't want to put too much tension so you snap or break anything. It's kind of a cold day, so we got to be careful for that. But I'll cut the camera back on once I do that. Alright, so I went ahead and got the connector out, and there's something I noticed straight off the bat. Maybe you guys could see it right away. So you're gonna have this security little tab that, you know, it kind of keeps it in place. I like to use one of these little screwdrivers to get to it, especially where it's at. I like to get it from the back side. Let me get this to focus real quick. Yeah, I like to get it through the back side and push this way, and then it pushes up. But if you can, you could actually get between it, especially if you have one of these screwdrivers, and you could flick up. Then there's supposed to be a little clip right here that you push down on and push up. This one doesn't have it, but at least you have the security code, because this will actually hold it in place. You know, as long as you have that, you know, pretty much it'll get held in place. It should stay sturdy. Not sure, maybe this is the problem with the code, is because the actual connector, maybe it worked itself loose. It was kind of loose coming out. As soon as I put a little bit of pressure, it just popped right out because of that. But you know, I'm gonna go ahead and look at these wires. Next thing you want to do, look at these wires. I'm gonna get this out the way, or if I could slide it up, I'll slide it up, and I'll go ahead and look at the wires underneath, make sure they're not pinched, and we'll try to trace them down as much as we can. Usually you want to look at these wires and examine like whatever turns they take, like if they wrap around a manifold or wherever they're wrapping around, you're gonna want to look in those areas. Stuff like this, here's a little harness up top, stuff like this where this is like missing, areas like this can be a clue. I mean, this is not what we're working with, but like for this harness in particular, so any clues you could find with that is going to help you. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and if all looks good with this harness, I'm going to go ahead and just go for the sensor, and usually that's enough for me to you actually get a better view of it right down there. Now I got everything moved out. Usually it's a 3-prong, so there should be a, you know, a wire per prong. Let's see, do I have 3 in here? Yeah, I do have 3. I got 3 in the connector right here, so we got 3 wires to work with. It's a 3-prong plug. So yeah, like I said, if everything looks good, we'll go ahead and rip that out of there. Alright, so I got the new part right here, and this thing sits in there just like that. So as you can tell, the mounting point's right there. I always compare the new parts, especially on like tough to get to areas like right here. I look at the new part, see how it's mounted down, so I know the mounting point's right there. Everything's kind of oily, and that's just because, you know, it's been driven. It's a car that gets driven, so you know what I mean, that just kind of typically happens. I'm gonna go ahead and focus in on the mounting point. I got a little screwdriver. I'll go ahead and show you guys what I'm talking about. So let's see if I can get a better angle here. Okay, so right here, if you guys can see the screwdriver I got right here, that's going to be the 10 I am talking about, is right over here. So I think it's a 10. I'm going to call it a 10 for now. If it's not, I'll tell you guys what size it is. I'll edit it up above the video up here. That way you guys know what size it is. Knock that out, and then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to either pry, or if you have enough wiggle room, to push the sensor out this way. Once you do that, it's out, and you just got to be careful on putting the new one in. You do not want to damage this orange piece right here. You leave that on, the engine will mark its place on its own with that little orange piece. So putting it in, just be careful. So I'm going to knock this out, and then I'm going to go ahead and slide the new one in. But it is as detailed as I'm going to get for you guys on this one, you know, as to how to get to there. Because a lot of videos didn't show taking off this bracket to the alternator, move it to the side. They didn't show any of that. So that's how you access it, and this is the location. Alright, we got the old one out. I was able to go in there at an angle, kind of pinch down at the corner, kind of wiggle it, and pull it right up. You don't got to worry about it breaking if you determine that was what the problem was and you got the new part anyways. So, you know what I mean. Don't worry about it breaking or cracking or anything like that. Mine came out okay. So this is actually the new one. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get a little bit of motor oil and just kind of dip your finger in it. And then what you're going to want to do is just rub it around that O-ring. Make sure it goes in there clean. And then we'll go ahead and throw it back in the exact same way we took it out. Alright, so we went ahead and got the new one put in. We're going to go ahead and start putting this back together. I decided to prop you guys up so you guys can see what I did. If you guys pay attention, right down here is the alternator. It has this plastic little housing to protect the power. So I went ahead and grabbed the line to the AC compressor. I just looped it around here rather than zip tying it. I mean, you could zip tie this stuff out the way or bungee cord it out the way or whatever. Just as long as, like I said earlier, don't go overboard. You don't want to crack these lines, especially when it's cold. It kind of warmed up now, so it feels good. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is lift it up, kind of put it back into the place, and this is where it goes, right down here. So that was held on by a 13. This is a bolt with the stud up top. So you want to put that right back on there. Like I said, it's the bolt with the stud up top. So if you had a deep 13 socket, you'd be able to put that right over there. I'm going to go hand tight. These don't need to be crazy tight. It's, you know, just a bracket to hold it together. I'm just going to use my wrench. So it's pretty hand tight, and then got my wrench over it. And a good tip I'm going to show you guys is when I tighten, I'm actually just using these three fingers. Using these three fingers right there as I go. And once it's too tight for those three fingers to tighten it, I'm going to call that good. So now that that's on there, we're going to grab our other 13. It's a nut. You just throw the bracket for the alternator right over it. I had to remember, you know, sometimes you lose track, but a lot of times these things only go on one way. So again, you know, hand tight, and then just use your three fingers to tighten that. We're going to call that good. This is the other 13. I'm going to use the same rule of thumb on that. Hand tight, and three fingers. That's as tight as that needs to be. So then we're going to grab our 10, and this is the one down below that we had to really get out the way for that sensor. We're just going to throw that back in place, and exact same rule of thumb on that too. You want to be careful with your 10s, 11, and 12s. All those fasteners or all those bolts, they tend to snap if you go overboard. They will snap. They're small, especially 10s. So you want to go as little as possible, tight enough. You look up the specs on how to torque them down. We're not going to go that detailed on that. I just like using the three finger method for something like this. And if you have one of these long ratchets, this one's just a Harbor Freight ratchet. Any long ratchet that you have, it's easy to over torque. These ones, especially on 10s, I just use one finger. Sounds crazy, it's like but it works. Just your one finger. That's tight enough. You want to trust that, you know, especially for 10s, you know. That's kind of the rule of thumb that I use. Especially you'd use that with the wrench too. You go with one finger on the wrench too. Now what we have left is you want to look over the vehicle, make sure you didn't crimp anything down, make sure nothing broke in the process. You know, it's kind of what I do, make sure I didn't destroy anything, you know, nothing broke that I didn't notice. Everything looks good here. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to get our air box next. At least this is the step that I'm going to use. I'm going to get this air box. I'm just going to set it right there for now. I'm going to go ahead and grab the actual boot for the air box. And this only goes one way. As you can tell, this side's smaller, this side's bigger. The bigger side is going to be on here. So what I'm going to do, it went this way because the sensor is going to be faced you. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it on this actual little housing area first. And if you wanted to, while you're at it, you can take out the air filter, you know, clean it. This one's pretty clean, but you could tap it, you know, clean it out a little bit. You'd even recommend a new one if that's what's needed. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to grab your, okay, so I was actually going to put the boot on the throttle first, but it looks like what I'm going to have to do, going at an angle because it scoops down. You'll see the clips I'm talking about. And then once you get those clips in, kind of persuade this boot. These engines are real tight with this stuff. I just want to make sure it's down in place. That's about right. And then you're just going to want to clip it. So we're in. This just needs to be tight. We'll go ahead and tighten it down. Same way that we tighten this clip, just with the 3-finger method. Okay, that is good. Now that we got that, all it's left to do there is put in the sensor on this side. You're gonna want to go ahead and put that sensor in. Okay, now that that sensor is in there, you're gonna want to make sure the wires to the sensor aren't too tight or nothing. It's actually a good spot for that. And you're going to want to push down the security tab. That way it doesn't come undone. Now that we did that, what's left to do is put in the hose on the valve cover. So that's that. That's all it took. So yeah, we'll go ahead and start it up. We'll see how it sounds. We'll see if we clear the lights, take it on a test drive, see if the lights will come back on, and then we'll see what's going on after that. All right, so we got it started up. It sounds a lot better than it did before. It's gonna take a little bit. Here's the old sensor. It's gonna take a little bit so it could make good contact and tell with the new sensor. So we'll let it run for a little while, and then we'll go ahead and scan it and see if the actual code turned off by itself. Sometimes these codes will just turn off by themselves after you put the new one in. But we'll go ahead and check if that happened. If not, we'll clear it and we'll take it out on a drive. Alright guys, so I'm pretty happy with the idle that we got going on. It doesn't sound as rough as to when it came to me. We're going to go ahead and take it out on a drive now. Hopefully all is good. I got a nice little loop that I like to drive around in the area. And usually that's enough to either trigger codes or to, you know, call it a win or not. So we'll go ahead and do that. And then I'll cut the camera back on, let you guys know how it goes. Alright guys, so as you guys can tell, everything went well. I took it on a pretty good, I want to say, half hour to an hour drive. I had no lights triggered back on. I was actually able to drop off the vehicle. Sometimes, you know, sometimes we do that, you know, work things out to, they don't got to find a ride to come pick up their car, you know, and they have pretty much a car follow them or whatever. So, you know, sometimes we help them out with that. But yeah, everything went well. There was an ABS light on and a brake light on. I believe those are unrelated. The original complaint to this one was that all the lights on the dash lit up, and you know, it scanned the codes, and those were the codes I got out of it. He said more lights usually come on whenever that happens, so I think just the ABS and the brake light is unrelated. That's probably to do with some suspension stuff. When they got time and our schedule isn't as crazy as it is, we're gonna sneak that one right back in here and get that taken care of. We got a lot of cars we got to work on and get out of the way before we can get to that. And it sounds like, you know, it's kind of, it's kind of one of those areas where they use this, van a lot, and they got to make time to where they can afford to have it come back because they rely on it heavily. So we took care of the main important problem. So if you guys like this video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. I hope it was as detailed as possible, and you guys know how to replace this sensor now. So yeah, I'll go ahead and see you guys on the next one, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.